Okay, that's it. Okay, again, so number one is tabloids and broadsheets, and you have to identify or define the concepts. Okay, first of all, definition of each of them. Then referring to tabloids and broadsheets, we have features or characteristics of each of them. Okay, features of them. Remembering, for example, the target readers, for example, the way in which they write the structures of tabloids or the structures of the language used, or the register that the journalist uses, for example, when writing in tabloids or when writing in broadsheets. Seriousness, informality, that's the idea, no? And of course, the aim or the objective of each of them. So in this part, you have to remember, let me see. I think I already gave you. Let's see. Ah, yes, of course. The web convention about tabloids and broadsheets. Remember that? The web conventions. So everything is on the recorded class, no? And in this case, it has to do, for example, how the tabloids are presented on the web. The features or characteristics of tabloids and broadsheets on the web. That's the idea of web conventions, okay? What else? For example, in the case of there in broadsheets, you will find navigation tabs, for example, or a slideshow, or different websites or site tabs in which you can go to different websites in the same, for example, page of that specific tabloid or broadsheet. Differences, for example, when you read tabloids or broadsheets on a paper or on the web. What's the difference there? The way in which the journalist presents the product. What else about that? I think that's all, no? For example, some aspects about the presentation is about the pictures or the images they use. What's the difference, for example? So what's the importance given to pictures or images by tabloids or by broadsheets? What about the articles? What about the length of the articles? Which one is shorter? Which one is longer? You know? What else? What about the details of the information, or the details given in the information or in the news? What else? Oh, so about, for example, the headlines. What kind of headlines do tabloids use, for example? And what about broadsheets headlines? No, the seriousness that broadsheets give, for example, to the headline, and what's the focus of a headline in a tabloid? What else? Images, that it's already there. The length of the article, the aim, the target reader, the features of each of them. I think that's enough with tabloids and broadsheets. Any questions? So for you to clear up any doubt about tabloids or broadsheets? Is it clear the points that I'm going to take for the first part of the test? Well, By the way, all the information is already uploaded in PPTs or in the recorded classes. So if you got some doubts today in the afternoon, please go to the PPT or go to the recorded class to clarify your doubts or clear up them, okay? Okay, let's go to the second point. It's not too much, by the way, it's not too much, relax. Okay, let's see. Oh, the second point has to do with how to obtain information. Well, this part is very short, it's very reduced, because you have to have information about, for example, the reporting skills or reporting techniques that journalists use, for example, to get information. We talked about some part of it, for example, interviews, sources, what else, government documents, or for example, to support your story with old article events, for example, or maybe, for example, for the first hand, no? That's the idea, to be present in the event. Well, everything has to do with the way in which journalists report or get information to be shared with the readers. Differently, if we are talking about tabloids or broadsheets, it doesn't matter that. It's not. Regardless to that, sorry, you have to identify the different techniques when reporting. That's it, okay? Then according to this, we have to identify the 6 values. Do you remember anything about the 6 values when reporting, when getting information? Well, the 6 values are concepts that have to be taken into account when writing or getting information about a specific event or about a specific information. The idea of the 6 values is to determine how newsworthy your story is. So, is it interesting to read? That's the idea. So the 6 values gives you that, no? Gives you the, it's to know, for example, or to have different ideas for you to take decisions about the story you're going to write. For example, some of them, I don't know if you remember that, timeliness. Remember that concept, timeliness. What is it about timeliness when writing? It's about, for example, how recent the story is. If you're writing, for example, about an old story, is it newsworthy for the readers? I don't think so, no? So the timeliness is the recent news are or have a higher news value than old news. So that's the idea of timeliness. The second value has to do with proximity. For example, if a story takes place in our own community, so maybe for some readers, news in our community is more interesting to read than, for example, news from Santiago, to say something, to give you an example. So that's the idea of proximity, okay? What else? Prominence, of course. Well, depending on the kind of newspaper, you have this concept called prominence. For example, some reader, well, everything will depend on your target, no, your reader target. For example, famous people. So writing about famous people, for some reason, I don't know why, for some reason, it's very interesting to write about common people. For example, to write about what happened to I don't know, the Minister of Economy, for example, or to read about Mr. Perez selling vegetables at the street, for example, you know. So the prominence gives you that information, no? It's people in the public eye for the reader, no? Important or famous people rather than common ones, okay? What else? The uniqueness. This concept has to do, for example, with strange stories or strange situations or bizarre events, which are very appealing for the reader to read, or no? For example, remember the example, what was it? A dog bites a man, no? So what about the other way around? So a man bites a dog. So that's bizarre, that's strange. Maybe that concept about uniqueness gives you the idea of writing about something which is unique, which is completely different from the rest of the stories. What else? Let me see. The impact. And this has to do with the, how can I say, the number of readers or the large number of people who is going to read your story. You see, it's like targeting your story. Obviously, stories which, for example, impact a higher number or a larger number of reader is more newsworthy than, for example, stories which impact small numbers of number of people. No, that's about impact, the quantity of people involved or impacted by your story. And then what else? The conflict. And obviously, stories with stripes or conflict are more interesting than stories which, for example, don't have any conflictive issue in the story itself. So maybe it's more appealing to show conflict to the reader for them to read your story. Obviously, those 6 values are randomly they are given for you to take decisions about what you're going to write about. So that's the idea. It's not that you have to include the 6 values in your story. It's impossible. Now, maybe you are going to use, for example, just one, proximity. And for example, if we take, for example, that value and say, okay, well, I'm going to inform about what happened in La Serena yesterday, more than what happened in Santiago de Chile or in the south of our country, you know? So that's the idea. So they give you like the guidelines for you to take decisions about what you are going to write or what information you are going to give to the readers. What else? Let's see. Any questions up to here? Is anybody there except Maria Francisca and Jair? The rest? I can't see your faces. Are you there or are you sleeping? Tell the truth.
No,
Camilita is awake. Okay, that's it. What else? What else? Then we have types of articles. Types of articles. Remember the types of articles? Yeah, the news report, the news story, and what else? The feature article. Yeah. Well, the news reports are always, or usually not always, found at the front of a newspaper. It's about only given information, inform readers about specific issues. It has, it includes full of names, different facts or events. The
Teacher,
news reports tend to be maybe more formal or more serious in their writing.
I have a question.
Camelita?
How many time will you give us to answer the test, teacher?
I haven't thought about it yet. Really. What about Tuesday and Wednesday?
All right.
Is that fine?
Paula,
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
esta semana estamos súper complicados porque tenemos bastantes pruebas y entregas de pruebas. De hecho, el miércoles tenemos prueba de Estado de Derecho. El martes tenemos que hacer un simulacro de entrevista periodística y el viernes tenemos que entregar otra prueba más. Entonces, si va a ser una prueba larga, yo creo que la idea sería darnos tiempo.
Sí, no hay ningún inconveniente, pero la planificación o programación de evaluación que tienen estas, grabando, ya. Entonces, en la parte de types of articles, nos encontramos con los news reports, ¿no? Que son siempre at the front of a newspaper, and the aim is only to inform the reader about specific issues, events, or situations which are happening in the world or maybe in the local area. It's full of facts, a lot of names, dates, places. It's more formal and it has a neutral tone. That's the idea of news report. Then we continue with feature articles. Esto es lo que se dice, the story behind the story. Have you ever heard about that? The story behind the story. It's explore the issues or topics, in general terms, raised by news stories in more depth, in more detail. For example, you start writing about, for example, elementary schools. Okay, well, this is your topic, this is your news story, your news report. Pero encontraste que dentro de esa news story hay algo que causó extrañeza y te tomas de eso y escribes y haces otro reportaje sobre algo surgido de ese news report, a eso se le llama feature article. ¿Ya? Que se toma de una información previa de una noticia, ¿no? Y se escribe. Por eso se le llama the story behind the story. ¿Ya? El ejemplo les había dado que creo que está en el PPT, ¿no? For example, about children left home alone. Ya hacen como una encuesta, qué sucede, con quién dejan a los chicos, pobrecitos ellos, ¿no? El impacto que causa, ¿no? Y obviamente se va a escribir, se toma esta noticia y se escribe, por ejemplo, la dificultad que tienen los papás, por ejemplo, para encontrar una persona idónea que pueda cuidar a esos pequeños mientras ellos van al trabajo. Ese es un feature article. Casi siempre tiene un tono así como más humano, ¿no? Más humano, más emotional, las feature articles. Es como try to involve the reader emotionally. Por eso se pesca de news reports o news stories para poder escribir sobre algo de esa forma. A ver. ¿Qué más? Estamos ahí, tenemos el feature article. ¿Consultas con eso? ¿Estamos bien? ¿Sí? Ya, sigamos.
Yes.
Súper, vamos al otro. ¿Qué teníamos? Sports. Bueno, eso no nos podemos perder, ¿no? Sports articles, ¿no? Sports articles. It features on local sports events or national sports events or international sports events, and has to do, for example, about athletes and athletes' accomplishments What else? It gives extensive information about sports event or sports or people involved in different sports or games, of course. Sometimes it gives the result of a sport game or a sport competition. Bueno, that is about sports articles, no? It's quite simple to identify and recognize. Then we have editorials. A ver, ¿qué pasa con las editorials y las opinions? Any difference?
Sí, lo que yo entendí es que la editorial, como su nombre lo dice, da como a conocer la opinión del editor o del medio sobre algo, y la opinión ya es algo personal que las personas, o sea, es más subjetiva. Como que
Correcto, María José, excelente. So in the case of editorials, obviously it's written by, for example, an editor or the half of an editor, el nombre del editor, maybe sometimes. And about different topics, the idea here is to use persuasive language or persuasive writing, obviously to involve the reader in a specific topic, in a certain way, no? The idea is to persuade the reader in a specific way. What else? It can be local, it can be national, or it could be international news as well. And as Maria Jose explained previously, yes, opinions has to do with the reader's opinions, in which they give the viewpoints, some judgments about something which was already written in the newspaper, or maybe given a reply or an answer to something which was written by someone else. Okay, well, that's the idea, no? Sometimes we can find their references or comments about previous comments of other people, no? So the opinions has to do with the reader's judgment, the reader's point of view, the reader's opinion. So the level of writing is subjective, okay? Is subjective. That's it. Anything else about the difference between editorials and opinions? No? It's quite clear. Let's go to classified. Classified. What's that, classified? What is classified, my dear students?
Los anuncios.
That's it. That's it. So this is like the advertising form in a newspaper. That's the idea. There, for example, the information is grouped by headings or subheadings there with different categories. No? What else? It's only text, pictures or images are not included, or usually, no? It gives, for example, in the case of a text, there you will find the description of something, the description of the service, the description of a product. And of course, the contact information for that product or for that service. What else? And that's all. That's all the information about classifieds. Then we need to continue with obituaries. Obituaries, what is it? Obituaries.
The people. I see the people.
Oh, Camila, qué miedo, how scary. Yes, of course. It has to do with the notice of death. The notice of death. Maria Francisca, any question? Siempre había levantado la manito. Well, the notice of death, it includes like a brief biography of the deceased person. Okay. One of the differences is between the type of newspaper. For example, larger newspapers, they write about people who are considered important in our country, for example. Ministers, famous people, etc. No? And the local newspaper writes about residents in a specific community. Okay, because, well, of course, in small cities, everyone knows each other, no? And that's the idea of the obituaries. That's it, obituaries, biography, description, information about the deceased person. Then we've got entertainment. The entertainment article, it's a feature article which is, or which can be focused in different aspects of culture, art, theater, what else? Art, theater, trance music, shopping, food, horoscopes, advice columns, etc. Okay. What else? Sometimes it has like interactive feature with the reader, because sometimes we write about something and we ask for the reader's opinion, and then the reader has the opportunity to give his or her viewpoint or judgment about something which has been published in this specific article, no, about entertainment. And finally, we've got the other parts of a newspaper, but that part was not explained in depth. Okay, so we only name them. The business, the weather, local, national, word was only showed but not explained in depth. I'm not going to include that part in the test, by the way. And finally, we've got, let me see, oh, headlines. Well, in the part of the headlines, that part will be divided into two parts. The first one is exactly the same as the activity that you did in the scored task. So you have to, well, I'm going to give you different headlines, and you have to identify which grammatical feature was used when writing. Okay, remembering that we have the noun strings, like it's a lot of different nouns together. Then we have, for example, verb changes, in which the simple tense is used instead of perfect tenses or continuous forms. Present simple instead of continuous form with ing, for example, no, or perfect forms, no. Remember, forgotten brother appears. So instead of saying, well, a forgotten brother has appeared recently, no, or lately. So has appeared, but in this case, we change the verb form using present simple. No se tiene que equivocar, present simple, no? Present simple en vez de que habla de cosas pasadas o cosas que sean, digamos, que hayan sucedido. Another grammatical point is the use of infinitive instead of future forms, okay? El to más el verbo que indica el is going to happen. Something to happen es lo mismo decir something is going to happen. ¿Ya? Entonces, en este caso, el infinitive to relaciona una acción a futuro. For example, President Piñera to visit La Serena. So the idea is that the president of our country is going to visit our city. infinitive to. Luego tenemos los auxiliaries, verbs dropped. Se va el have y el has, a veces con forma de perfecto, ¿no? El has been fuera, have been fuera, el uso del is, del are, del am, en formas de continuidad, fuera también con el ing, ¿no? Eso, en términos de verbos. Y finalmente, los articles. Se va los artículos definidos y los artículos indefinidos. An no existen los headlines y el uso del the también se va, ¿no? Por ejemplo, President declares celebration for today, for example, ¿no? So in this case, the president, el artículo se va, se omite. Y ahí estamos. Creo que estamos con toda la materia. Ya, entonces en el caso de los headlines, es eso. Ese ítem va a estar dividido en dos, donde tienes que identificar las características gramaticales, lo mismo que hicimos en la score task, identificar. Y en la segunda parte, yo te voy a entregar un everyday, un headline, pero in everyday language, y tú tienes que transformarlo a headline, pero respetando las cosas gramaticales. Uno de los puntos importantes que estaba revisando en sus score tasks, habían unos bien bonitos, yo no puedo decir que no estaban bonitos, bien entretenidos los headlines, pero resulta que los headlines, a pesar de que eran así como eran shocking, utilizaban artículos, por ejemplo, habían estructuras verbales completas, y la idea es que se utilicen de estas características gramaticales al momento de escribir un headline. Entonces, al momento de hacer la segunda parte de la evaluación que tiene relación con headlines, poner atención a estos puntos que son importantes, ¿no? Que es el respeto por estos puntos gramaticales que no deben ser incluidos en un headline, para que esté bien hecho, ¿ya? Voy a revisar lo que me falta, algunos los revisé, y me faltan varios más que pretendo hacer el día de hoy, porque la semana igual traté de estar un poquitito descansada, ¿no?
Miss,
Sí, Monse.
¿va a subir algún otro PPT